Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another TMDSAS office hour. So my name is Zuleima Melendez, and I am the communication specialist with TMDSAS. And I'm really excited for today's session because we're going to talk about a topic that is very much asked this time around in the application season. And I do have a colleague here with me, Katherin Slagle, who is our application specialist. Katherin, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Katherin Slagle. I'm the application specialist here at TMDSAS. I am pretty excited today because this is my first office hour with Zuleima. We're going to be talking about letters of recommendation, which is, kind of in my area. So I'm excited to be here and I'm excited to get this going.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Catherine, for that lovely introduction. I did want to mention that we'll go over a short presentation to just give you an idea of the types of questions that we've seen and to test your knowledge of letters of evaluation processing with TMDSAS. And if you have any questions, you can always enter those into the chat wherever it is that you're watching us. And we'll go ahead and answer those questions at the end of this short presentation. If you happen to miss this session live or you don't have time to watch the entirety of the session, fear not. This will be available after the session is over for you to watch on our YouTube channel at Texas Health Education Service. So we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation, and I'll let you guys know what we're going to be talking about. Making sure my PowerPoint works. In the first part of the session, we'll talk about 13 letters of evaluation questions. The second part will be kind of giving you an idea of when is the best time to submit those letters. And three, we'll answer questions from the audience at the end. So I'll go ahead and read off the questions. You, wherever it is that you're watching, you can also follow along with us and see if you're getting these answers correctly as I am trying to answer these as well. So the first question is whenever you submit your letters on June 1st, when is the 10th business day that you can expect to hear back on your letters? If I'm not mistaken, Catherine, and I'm making this math pretty quickly, I believe that is going to be June 15th.
That is correct. So processing times for letters submitted via direct upload, Interfolio, and the HPACs are all subjected to the 7 to 10 business day processing. This also includes rejected letters. So if you have a letter that is rejected and then it is corrected and resubmitted, it will also be 7 to 10 business days for processing.
All right, thank you, Catherine. Just to confirm, whenever applicants are counting how many days they can expect to hear back, should they include weekends?
No, do not include weekends or holidays.
Yes, because we are not open on those days. All right, let's see. We'll go on to the second question. Sorry, I have my screen. All right. So question two, you submit three letters on June 1st and then a fourth letter on June 6th. So when is the 10th business day you can expect to hear back on your letters? Well, that's easy. I just answered the question, June 15th.
And That's actually June 22nd. The reason for this is because letters that are sent through Interfolio will be processed on the most recent delivery date. If you submit your letters on 6/1 and then resubmit them again on 6/6, your letters will be processed on the 6/6 submission date, not on the 6/1 date. So if you want to kind of keep up with what days we're processing letters on, check out the TMDSES homepage for updates.
Okay, I'll go ahead and enter the link to our website if for some reason our applicants are not aware of it. So that's where you can check it out. What Catherine just mentioned is checking the processing times. If you go to www.tmdscs.com on that home page on the right-hand side of that page, there will be a blue box. Lets you know what dates our team is currently processing applications and what day our team is processing letters submitted via direct upload and Interfolio. So that way you can get an idea of when to hear back on your letters. Okay, so question three. Your health professions advisor can't see your application to submit an HPAC. So why might that be? My guess would be that they perhaps didn't receive an email from Team DSES letting them know that I'm ready to have an HPAC submitted on my behalf.
So not quite. We actually don't send out email requests for HPACs. But what you need to do as the applicant on your end is you need to answer yes to the questions in the colleges attended question section. Would you like to release your information to the health professions advisors at any schools? And then you need to indicate the school that will be uploading your committee packet in the letters of evaluation section.
All right. Well, thank you for that clarification. This is a very common question that we get from our applicants. So, if you do want to select the HP packet option, again, like Catherine mentioned, remember to go to your advisors and let them know that you've completed this section and that you are now ready to receive that HPAC on your application. Because our email requests don't go out for HPACs, but they do for individual letter options. And for question four, true or false, you can request to update your letters. I would say the answer is yes. So true.
Yep, that is true. So you can request to switch your evaluator with a new one as long as TMDSAS has not already received and approved the letter from the current evaluator listed.
Oh, perfect. So let's say that I have an unresponsive evaluator. I can change that at any time.
Yes, if you need to change it out, you can. You should be able to do that on your end in the letters of evaluation section. You just hit edit on the placeholder and change the evaluator information to the maybe somebody else. Make sure you save the page, and when you do, you should
Mhm.
have that email request go out to the new evaluator. If you should have any issues changing over that placeholder information, just reach out to us through the internal messaging system within your account, and we'll help you get that taken care of.
Perfect. That sounds great. I'll go ahead and move to the next question, question five. True or false? Your letters of evaluation need to be processed before submitting your application. The answer, yes.
Eh, false. So actually, you can submit your letters before TMDSES has received your letters of evaluation. Your letters will be added to your application as they are received.
Okay, so I don't need my letters to be in my application in order for me to submit it.
That's true.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, Catherine. So let me just put on a little like side note here. Correct me if I'm wrong, which I see the answer is here. But Catherine, letters are processed separately from our primary applications. Is that true?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so they will not delay my application processing at all.
No, not in any way. So,
Okay.
processing that'll happen as soon as you submit your application. You don't have to worry about getting in those letters. It will not affect the processing time for your application. That'll still go on as usual. As soon as you are able to get those letters in, get them in. And then once they are received and approved by our team, and then we'll update your application with that information. And usually those updates will go into the school system overnight.
All right, sounds good. So, anyone tuning in, don't worry about sending your letters or having those letters on your application in order for you to submit. Go ahead and submit your application, even if you don't have your letters. At the end, later at the end of this short pop quiz trivia question session, we will have some information that you need to know as far as the processing goes, so you can get an idea of when is the best time to submit those letters. So stay tuned. Stay till towards the end. So for sixth question, question number six, you need to enter blank evaluators to save the letters of evaluation section. I would say three. You need three evaluators in your application.
That is true. So you must create all three required placeholders at once and then click Save for this section to save and the email requests to be sent out. If you enter in one placeholder information and then you try to save the page and then you go on and you do something else in the application, you'll probably find out from your evaluator if you ask them that they never got an email request. And that's because you actually have to fill out all three evaluator placeholder information and then save the page in order for the email requests to go out to those evaluators. So if you're having trouble with that page and you think that might be why, be sure to fill out all three placeholders and have those email requests sent out to your evaluators.
Got it. Because then we do, you can avoid the stress and panic that evaluators have when they're contacting Team DSAS. They are unsure as to why they haven't received this email request. They know that they have to submit a letter, but they don't have an email coming in, and so they call us, and they're freaking out because they want to help you. They want to submit these letters, but there's no link. They never received a link. And then when we go into your application, it is blank. So make sure that you enter all three evaluators in if you're doing the individual letters of evaluation option. So that way you can ensure that your page saves and that your evaluators do receive that email request. So question 7, I'm applying for veterinary school. Can I send in a letter of evaluation? Well, yes, of course. The committee needs to see my evaluation, right?
Well, that is false. So, only digital submission of veterinary
Mm.
medicine applicant evaluation forms will be accepted. No accompanying letter is required by the veterinary schools. Letters of evaluation will not be accepted, nor will they be included with your application.
Okay. So just to clarify this, the dental and medical and podiatry applicants can submit a letter, a normal letter, that an evaluator writes and submits in either through Interfolio or a direct upload. But for veterinary applicants, it's a form.
That's true. It's an electronic evaluation form, and they'll fill that out through the evaluator portal. And this will be just a little bit different than what the medical, podiatry, or dental applicants do.
All right, perfect. And from what I remember from the veterinary school panel, they request these forms because it has specific information that the schools are looking for in regards to the veterinary applicants. So that's why they prefer this form instead of an actual letter that an evaluator would typically write for a dental or medical applicant. But just know that once you fill out the information on your application, same thing as the dental and medical applicants, you enter the email address and an email link will be sent out to your evaluator to complete the form. We'll go on to question 8. For EY 2023 application cycle, the schools recommend that letters be written after which date? I will say May 1st, 2021, if I'm not mistaken with these cycle years.
That's correct. So, admissions committees will take the date of the letter into consideration during review, with a strong preference for letters written after May 1st, 2021.
All right, sounds good. Well, what if I am a reapplicant? Can I reuse the same letter?
You can reuse the same letter. Just keep in mind that the schools do have a strong preference for letters written after May 1st, 2021.
All right, sounds good. And will I have to resubmit that, or does TMDSAS already have my letter so they can just roll over to the next application?
It's a very good question. So, it will not roll over. In fact,
Okay.
you will need to resubmit that letter.
All right, perfect. Well, sounds good. Thank you for letting us know. For all those who are reapplicants who might have this question as well. So, question 9, letters of evaluation are due to TMDSAS by, I would say, the TMDSAS primary application deadline.
That is a good guess, but that is actually false. So, dental and medical letters of evaluation are due November 15th, and then veterinary evaluation forms are due September 16th.
All right, well, sounds good. So, again, take note of these dates. Typically, on the application deadline for dental and medical applicants, we do receive questions about those letters being due that same day. It's not like the veterinary application, which letters do have to be submitted on the same day as the application. But for dental and medical applicants, you do have that extra week or two to get those in by November 15th. So, take a note of that. And then question 10, if your letter of evaluation is rejected, you need to do blank. I think you touched a little bit on this, Catherine, so why don't you go ahead and explain to us what that process looks like if a letter is rejected?
Sure. So there's a couple different things that are going to happen. The first thing is when we receive a letter for an applicant, we're going to review it for all the necessary components. Should one of those necessary components be left out, we're going to reject the letter and then we're going to update you in the internal messaging system within your account. That's why it's really important to stay on top of your messages throughout the cycle. This is where some pretty vital messages are going to go to you about your application that could be kind of time sensitive. So in this case, check your messages. We'll eventually send you shortly after it's rejected an IM about why it was rejected. And what you want to do after that point is reach out to your evaluator, let them know why the letter was rejected, and have them correct that letter. Now, as far as how to re upload that letter, the evaluator can go through the original method, delivery method that they use. So if they use Interfolio the first time around, they can use Interfolio the second time around. If they want to use direct upload, they can use that again as well. Keep in mind, though, that with direct upload, you may be tempted to hit the resend email request button that's in the
Mm,
letters of evaluation section. But keep in mind that if your letter was rejected, that button will not work. So you want to tell your evaluator to use the link in the original email request. And they can use that just fine to re-upload that letter. Now, if they have issues finding that email, I don't know, maybe somebody deleted it and then deleted it in the deleted folder, and now they don't have
mhm.
access to it anymore. That's fine. Have them reach out to TMDSAS, and then we can get them the link to get them access back into the evaluator portal. And then basically after that point, all you need to do as the applicant is to continue to monitor your application status page to ensure that those corrected letters have actually been re-uploaded and have been received and approved. You can follow along with what submission date we're working on by checking out the processing times that are on the TMDSAS homepage.
Wow, that is great information. Thank you for sharing that. Because it can be a little frightening whenever we hear that our letter was rejected, and
Mhm.
just wondering when that can be corrected and when it can be uploaded on the application. But thank you for outlining all the steps that are needed to take in order to resolve that issue as soon as possible. So we'll go ahead and move to the next question. This one's a yes or no. I can submit all letters of evaluation that I want to enter my application. I would say yes. I want the admissions committees, to read all these wonderful letters that my evaluators have to write about me.
Eh, Unfortunately, no. I really wish that that could be the case, but there has to be some moderation here. So, individual letter options, you need to have a minimum of 3 letters and can have a maximum of 4 letters. Meaning there are the 3 required letters, but you can also add a fourth optional letter to that if you like. And then for the HP committee packet option, you'll be able to submit the HPAC, but you'll also be able to add an additional letter, optional letter outside of the packet. Now, I know that some people might have questions about what can be in the HPAC itself. That's entirely up to your advisor, whoever is putting that packet together. There is not any restrictions on how many letters can be in a committee packet. We leave that up to the schools to decide how they want to sort of organize that. So if you're kind of wondering like what the limit is, essentially there's not. We leave it up to the committee to decide what they want to put in it.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's say that I have 3 letters already on my application, or I have selected the HP packet. Is there any way for me to go back and decide to add a letter if I would like, for either option?
Yeah, so if you originally had just submitted 3 or just the committee packet by itself, and you found an evaluator that you want to add their letter to your application, you can certainly add that even after you've submitted your application. If you're not able to do it yourself in the letters evaluation section, send us an IM. Let us know that you want to add an optional letter either to your 3 required letters or to your committee packet. You'll need to provide the information that is needed to fill out a placeholder. This can be found in the letters of evaluation section in the application guide. It's essentially the salutation, first name, last name, delivery method, etc. Provide that information because we're going to need it to fill out that placeholder for you. Then we'll save the page, and then the email request will go out to your evaluator. And at that point, just per usual, continue to monitor your letters in the application on the application status page.
Okay, well, great point. I decided to go ahead and link the letters of evaluation section of the application guide because it does have the components that you mentioned, salutation and everything else you mentioned. It's listed on there, and so that's what's needed for us to create the placeholder. So if you need to add one later on, let us know what that information is so that we can create the placeholder. I will say that towards later in the cycle, we do receive requests to remove that fourth letter or that extra letter separate from the packet. Sometimes the evaluators are, again, non-responsive, and so it might be a good idea for you to go ahead and just remove that. You do have that option. However, you'll just need to send us a message if that's the case and you would like to remove that placeholder. We'll have a team member help and remove that for you from your application. Okay, and then let's go to the next question. Another yes or no. You can specify which schools will receive your letters. I think so. I think we can indicate, for example, that I want to select a specific letter to go to one school, school A, and then the other for school B. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. So keep in mind that all the letters that are being submitted to your application, they're going to be accessible by all of the select schools that you apply to. So you want to
Mm,
let your evaluator know. Um, not to cater a letter to a specific school. All the schools will have access to this. So you don't really want to start a letter for, hey, Baylor, or hey, McGovern, just because all the schools are going to be able to see it. So just keep that in mind. Let your evaluators know. Try to keep it general, a generalized letter, just talking about your professional and academic qualities.
All right, sounds great. Because that is a question we get. Maybe other application services do this, but as far as TMDSAS, we do not do that. Everything goes to every school that you apply to. All right, I think this is our last question before we get into the next section of the presentation. So for question 13, a different blank would prevent your evaluator from seeing you in the TMDCS evaluator portal. Now, I know this answer because I get these questions a lot from the evaluators when they call us, and the answer is email address.
That is correct. So this is pretty important, and it really may not seem quite obvious, but um, the email that you enter into the letters of evaluation section for your evaluator, it needs to match the email for the account that the evaluator uses to create their evaluator account. So that email needs to be the same in your application, and it needs to match the one that they're using in their evaluator portal in order for them to actually see you. So if your evaluator comes back to you after you've sent the request and they're like, oh my gosh, can't find you in the system, it's probably because of the email address. So check there first. If you still have issues, obviously have your evaluator reach out to us. We'll troubleshoot with them.
Yes, this is definitely the common thread, the common thing, root cause of the issue. So just check in with your evaluators to make sure y'all are using the same email address. So sometimes you may be sending it to their work email, and maybe they're using their personal Gmail account to create an account. And so that would create a mismatch. Or sometimes they used to work at one specific school, and now that they're working in another one, that email address no longer works, which is the one that was associated with their TMDSAS account. So yeah, get with your evaluator to make sure you're using the same email address to avoid those issues, to avoid the specific issue. We'll go ahead and talk a little bit about when it is recommended to submit your letters. And before I get into that, I wanted to ask Catherine if you had any additional information about the processing of letters itself.
Sure. So I definitely would like to touch on the processing times for letters. For Team DSES, we take the full 7 to 10 business days to process your letters, and during the peaks of our cycle, this could be even just a little bit longer.
Hmm,
We
makes
have
sense.
hundreds, if not thousands of letters coming in. You may experience with other application services maybe a shorter turnaround time, but we are a different application service. We do have a different way of doing things, and we typically stick to our 7 to 10 business day policy, and we as a team we try very hard to keep that keep letters processed under that processing time. I would just keep that in mind as you're kind of waiting for these letters to come in. I know it can be a very anxiety inducing thing. You want to get these letters in, you want your application to be seen as completed by the schools, and we're working tirelessly on our end to get that done for you. I think in the meantime, to just give you a peace of mind as you're waiting, keep up with the processing times on the TMDSAS homepage. This is where you can go just to see what day we are, what submission day we're working on for Interfolio and for direct upload. I think if you are feeling anxious, seeing that will be able to make you feel a little bit better as you see that number getting higher and higher and getting closer to the date that you submitted your letter on. But also, if you check out that page and you find, hey, they're working, past my date, I should have been looked at already. I would say keep in mind that policy that we said, or that information that we gave you about Interfolio, and sending in multiple deliveries, because that could be the reason why. If it was sent through direct upload, definitely reach out to us. Reach out to us through IMs or give us a call. We can always look into those things for you. But in the meantime, we thank you for your patience during this time, as we get these letters processed and get them into your applications.
Wow, thank you so much for that insight. So it
Mhm.
does put it into perspective that it's going to take some time, because even though there are different, applicants are submitting applications via different application services. So it's easy to get those processing times confused. But with Team
Mhm.
DSES, it's 7 to 10 business days. So I did want to mention that with that in mind, remember that it can take up to 4 weeks to process your primary application, from the day in which you submit your application. So during that time, your application is still with TMDSAS. So as you can see here on this timeline, it takes about 2 to 4 weeks to process. And the TMDSAS processing um, time within your application cycle timeline is indicated in gold. So I want you to go ahead and let's see, I had this little animation here.
Mhm.
And so once you're this is a team DSAS processing time. So Catherine works on a team that processes the letters of evaluation that come in, but we also have another team that solely does the application processing. So these are two different processes working completely independent from each other. So your letters of evaluation will not impact the time it takes to process your application because that's another process. It's a just separate thing, and vice versa. So application processing does not delay your letters at all whatsoever. So once you submit your application, let's say for example in this example that you submit your application around mid-May, you can expect to hear back on on your application being transmitted about 4 weeks later. That's pretty typical for this time around in the cycle, as we have a lot of applications coming in. So it can take about 4 weeks to process your application. And again, during that time, it is still with TMDSAS. So if you keep in mind that processing time, which is around this particular time period, you can expect to hear on your application being completely processed by around mid-June, and that is the time whenever your application will be sent to the schools. So once your application is transmitted to the schools or it has been sent to the schools will go ahead and review your application. Some may wait to send you an interview invite until all your letters of evaluation and your test scores have been received. But then again, remember that the interview season doesn't start until August. So they won't even be able to send you that information until August when the interview season time starts. So there's no need to panic about whether your schools will receive a completed application because right now, honestly, it's going to take some time for them to even receive that application. Again, the 4 week period that it takes to process your application. That application is with TMDCS. The schools haven't received it, so it is the perfect time to go ahead and make sure that your letters and your test scores are received during that time period. Remember, it takes about 10 business days to have letters processed, so that can definitely happen within this 2 to 4 week period window. So just be mindful of whenever you would like to submit your application. Know that one, you don't need to have your letters when you're ready to submit it, and two, that you do have that 2 to 4 week period to get those additional things submitted. So your letters and your test scores to make sure that while your application is in line, whenever you submit it, it's in line waiting to be processed, you get that information in. So by the time that it is finished and completed and it's sent out to the schools, your schools have a completed application on their end. So just be mindful of that. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. There is a time period for you to get that information or those things in order for your schools to have a completed application on their end. And so, just to get a better understanding of what this process looks like and in a video, because I know that I'm a visual learner and that's how I can learn how these processes work, there is a link to the video that we have on what it means to apply early and how you can use that timeline to kind of figure out that sweet spot that you need to submit your letters and your test scores to ensure that your application is completed on the school's end by the time it gets to the schools. So I'll go ahead and link that into the chat. And let's see if you have any questions. This is the best time to go ahead and submit those. Send them our way. Ask them in the chat, and we'll go ahead and get started with the first question that we have here in the chat. Give me just a second while this loads. Okay, so our first question is if our letter writers forgot to put in contact information, say the email or phone number on letters, is there a way for me to add that instead of me asking them to add it and resubmit the letter? Catherine?
Unfortunately not. It would be ideal to be able to make those corrections
Yeah.
yourself, but unfortunately not. It needs to be the evaluator who makes those corrections, um, and you'll need to let your evaluator know what's wrong, have them correct it on the letter themselves, and resubmit the letter with the correct information. And we know that can be kind of hard because your evaluators are usually very busy people, and so having to sort of bug them to kind of make these corrections, it is it can be difficult at times, but unfortunately they have to be the ones who make those updates and then submit the letter back into the application.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think it's a good idea whenever you inform an evaluator that you would like for them to write a letter for you, that you go over those five requirements that are needed to ensure that your letter doesn't get rejected. So, one, again, it's the date, the first and foremost, the letterhead. So, it can be a personal or a professional letterhead at the top, a date, your name, so that way we know and the admissions committees do know who this letter is about, their contact information, such as their email and phone number, and then a signature. Is there anything else that I'm missing, Catherine?
Nope, you got them.
Oh, perfect. So make sure that you inform your evaluators what these five requirements are, so that way you can ensure that it doesn't get rejected and it happens once and they don't have to worry about that letter again. We'll move on to the next question that we received. So this one's from Angelica. Do Texas schools accept letters of recommendation from college algebra professors? I can go ahead and take a stab at this one.
Okay.
So not I don't recall that TMDSAS has a specific requirement for who can write a letter. Um, but check in with the schools that you're interested in applying to ensure that maybe they don't have a requirement, such as maybe, for example, they want specifically like a science professor to write a letter, and that may be to show them, kind of give them an idea of how you would perform in medical school, considering you took science courses, and maybe those science professors would be great at kind of giving them that general idea of how you did in school and how you are likely to perform in medical school if accepted. Um, maybe they don't have a specific requirement. So check in with the schools that you like to apply to, as having different evaluators can give you like an upper hand as so they can speak about like different areas, not just your academics, but maybe personal, maybe you volunteered or any other areas that someone may know you very well that can speak about those attributes that you bring to the table, that a medical school would want to see in a medical applicant. um, Catherine, is there anything else that you would like to add on that?
No, I think you tackled it. Team DSES doesn't specifically have any requirements for who writes your letters, but I know that there is um, I believe it's on in the application guide or a recommendation or a suggestion that maybe some of those letter writers be, or one at least one of those letter writers be from a professor in the sciences. But ultimately, I think it's something that you want to check in with your select schools about to see what they might prefer. So I think you hit the nail on the head on that one.
Yeah. All right. So I think there is, we do have an article that talks about selecting your evaluators, as that is what the applicants do. You decide who do you want the admissions committees to hear from that can speak on your behalf, and just again give the best impression of who you are. Give me just a second. I can find this article really quickly and link it in the chat. And then this is typically something that we receive from non-traditional applicants, who have been out of school for a long period of time. So it's normal and understandable that they might not have contact with previous professors, and that is perfectly fine. Again, if you have someone else that can speak on the attributes and that you bring to the table because they know you personally, that's also a great way for them to talk about that. So I'll go ahead and link the article in the chat. And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next question that we received. Let me go ahead and find it. Okay, next question we have. Hi, I submitted my letters of recommendation through Interfolio on May 24th, and the website says TMDSAS is working on Interfolio letters from May 26th already. My submitted application says not received yet. Is this normal? Catherine?
Yeah, so this is normal. I mean, as far as the date that you submitted, I would check with Interfolio because, as we mentioned, kind of um, through this office hour, that Interfolio, if you send multiple deliveries, it's going to be the earliest, the most latest delivery time that we actually process it on. So just check and confirm with Interfolio that your letters were actually submitted on the date that you think that they were. For us right now, we are processing letters submitted from Interfolio on 5/26. So check for that second delivery issue in case that might have happened to you. If that is not the case, as I mentioned before, reach out to us, send us an IM. We'll definitely look into that for you to see if something can be done about that. But yeah, it's taking about the full 7 to 10 business days. We're going a little bit over right now, but yeah, we're working on 5/26. So if you need to reach out to us to ask us about that, you can certainly do that.
Yeah, and based on the information that you provided, it sounds like it's probably more on the likelihood that because there was two different, I mean, like two different submission dates, that's probably why it got pushed back. So the initial date of submission no longer is the 24th, and maybe another one. But as Catherine mentioned, go ahead and send us a message so we can take a look at that and clarify that if needed. We have another question that came in. Um, you mentioned that schools have a strong preference for letters written after May 1st, 2021. Would you say this holds true for non-traditional applicants who may not have as much contact with writers? I'll take a stab at this since I kind of mentioned it previously. But yeah, the admissions committees do prefer to see a most recent date. So specifically for EY 2023, they want to see letters written after May 1st, 2021. The reason for that is because it gives them the most updated information about where you are at in your pre-health journey and what you've done so far. They can talk about the most recent things about you. So it is understandable that you may not have contact with previous evaluators that have written a letter in the past. However, it's fine if to reuse that letter and resubmit it. So Team DCS doesn't roll over your letters, but you can go ahead and submit that same letter again, just through Interfolio or a direct upload. But just make sure that that letter itself has this date or after, because that way it is the most preferred by the schools. And if you maybe need to reach out to an evaluator and explain, you need to have updated information. I'm pretty sure if they're part of your supporting team, rallying after you, they will understand this and more than likely help you with updating that letter so that it has the most recent information, and to ensure that the admissions committees will accept this letter because it is preferred to have them written after May 1st. Um, and a follow-up to Stephen's question, I'll go ahead and show it in the chat, or on the screen. I submitted all four letters of my all 4 letters on May 24th, and Interfolio confirmed May was sent on that date. How can I best contact y'all to discuss this further? Definitely send a message. That is the best way to contact us, as that is attached to your application as well. So we're able to take a look at your letters on there as well. Anything regarding changes or updates or any kind of concerns you may have about your application, you should send us a message in your application portal because that is the best way to contact us, and so we can take a look at your application. So go ahead and send us a message if you haven't already, Stephen. That way we can have Catherine and Catherine's team take a look at that for you to take a look and see what the problem might be. Let me see if we have any other questions in the chat. Um, Okay, so we have one that's not necessarily about letters, but we can go ahead and address that here. So, question from Michael, for medical school applications, is there a limit to how far back high school information is needed, such as the high school rank, SAT score, ACT scores? Um, there's I don't think there's necessarily like a limit, but you definitely want to make sure that if you have like your high school transcript, typically that has information about your ranking, your class size, which is what you need to enter in your application if you have that information. If not, I don't think you should stress out about it. Sometimes those transcripts may have the SAT or ACT scores, so check on that. If you are not able to locate your SAT scores, maybe perhaps your school's registrar's office may have that information. So check with that. It's typically like your undergrad or main institution may have that information. Otherwise, you can contact College Board, or I think ACT is separate from College Board, but you can contact those services to see if they still have your scores. But if you have any questions about that, feel free to send us a message. That way we can um, speak about what your different options are if you are unable to locate that information. But send us a message if you have any further questions about that, Michael. And let me see if we have any other questions in the chat. Again, if you have any, go ahead and send them in now. This is the best way to get your questions answered as we are here live and we can address those with you guys. So we'll go ahead and give it just a few more minutes to wait while we wait while we receive more questions. Let's see. I did want to mention that we do have another article that was published last cycle, which still has relevant information. So it is specifically talking about the processing. So TMDSAS, as you all know, it has a different processing uh, process for letters of evaluation that may be different than other application services. And so again, it can be tricky with if you are applying to many through many application services to keep track of what service process letters and how and what the difference is. So there is an article, I'll link it in the chat now. It basically just touches up on how to select your evaluators, how your evaluators can submit their letters. If you need to make changes to those letter evaluations, there's information about that, as well as how to ensure that your letters get processed quickly and that they won't get rejected. So that information is listed in the article. I'll go ahead and enter the link in the chat. All right, and so in the meantime, we'll stick around for another 2 more minutes or so, just while we see if we have any additional questions coming in from you guys. Let's see. Another thing I wanted to mention briefly, I'll go ahead and make sure that it's listed on the letters of evaluation section and in the, actually, let me go ahead and send you guys the page that your evaluators can take a look at for information on how to or what to include in your letter. As we mentioned, it's important that you let them know about the requirements that are needed for a letter not to be rejected. So they can find this information in that help page specifically for evaluators. It has the requirements that are needed for dental and medical applicant letters of evaluation, as well as veterinary for those veterinary forms. There are also FAQs on that page. It's typically around account access, letters about questions about letters being rejected, what to do in that situation. Um, when submitting and then when needed any additional like assistance or anything like that, so that information is listed on that help page. There are a couple resources that we have on there, as well as some of our evaluators type these evaluations out on Word, and our system indicates that they need to submit it in a PDF file. And so there's instructions on how to convert Word documents to a PDF, how to convert the pages documents to that are created on either like a MacBook or Mac laptop or anything like that, how to convert it into a PDF so that it's accepted on the portal, as well as guidelines for writing a letter of evaluation and kind of examples of how a typical letter can look like to ensure with those examples of or those requirements that are needed to ensure that it doesn't get rejected. So there's examples of how that looks like, what we've seen in the past. All that information is outlined in the help page. So make sure to have your evaluators take a look at that so that they can have that information readily available, and have that with them as they're writing out these letters for you. There is another message that we got. Let me go ahead and add it. Let's see. A follow up to Michael's question. I took the SAT back in 2010. My high school transcript doesn't have scores for my SAT. I am working on getting my score from College Board, but if I can't, what do I put on the TMDSAS application? Um, so just do the best you can with the information you have. If it's not enough to fill it in, I think you can just put in no for that. I think when it's requiring, if you have specific information that you don't have access to. But if not, if you still have questions with that, go ahead and send us a message. That way we can follow up with you and kind of figure out how to problem solve that to get that issue resolved. But in the meantime, if you would like, just for now, if you're working on your application right now, go ahead and fill out. Maybe put like no, just so that way you can at least move on with the rest of your application, work on it as we get back to you on how to figure out how to resolve that issue, so you can have that information on your application. We did receive another question about letters, so I'll go ahead and enter it into the chat. How can we remove one letter writer that we indicated on the Team DSAS application if that person takes too long to respond? I already have 3 letters, just waiting on that fourth person. Okay, so earlier I mentioned to go ahead and send us a message and let us know if an evaluator is unresponsive. That way we can have a team member remove that placeholder. Unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to do this yourself on your end, but send us a message and let us know what that evaluator is that needs to be removed, and we can have that removed for you. The team member will respond back to your message letting you know that that has been removed from your application. So just send us a message and we can have someone assist you with that. All right, we've received a couple of other questions as well. So let me go ahead and show that on the screen. What is the standard turnaround time for the message system on the TMDCS application? I just submitted my question. Great question. So it takes about typically 1 to 2 business days to get back to you whenever you send a message. Just be mindful that right now we are in the peak of the season, which is typically May through July. So that time may be a little bit longer, but just be patient. We do have our team that's working diligently to get through those messages to ensure we get to your questions within close to that 1 to 2 business day window turnaround. But anything regarding changes to your application, such as removing letters of evaluation or taking a look at your letters, anything dealing with your application itself, and the letters and test scores, transcripts, all need to be sent in the messaging system so we can take a look at your application as well. So if you've already sent that message, great, you've already completed step number 1. So just be on the lookout for a response within 2 business days or so, and we'll have someone reach out to you to help you out with your question. We have a follow-up question from Ben. If we're using Interfolio to send letters of evaluation to TMDSAS, do we need to worry about the TMDSAS evaluator portal? This is for a medical school application. Catherine, would you like to respond to this? I feel like I've been answering a lot of these myself.
Sure, no problem. So yeah, if you're using Interfolio, you don't need to worry about direct upload. Those are two separate processes altogether. But just to kind of give people a little bit of insight into how Interfolio works, um, on our side of things, once you've had your evaluator submit your letter to Interfolio, you release it to TMDSES. We get it on our end. We process those letters based on the date that they were submitted to us. We will, once we reach the letter in the queue, we will, look through for all the requirements that are needed. We will save the letter and then upload it into your application. Should it be approved and have all the necessary requirements, should it be rejected, we'll do the same thing we would do with any of the other rejected letters. We'll send you a message through the internal messaging system within your account, letting you know what's wrong so that you can let your evaluator know, and then they can resubmit it through Interfolio once again.
Yeah, so to kind of touch up on that follow-up question, sorry, answer. So if you're submitting through Interfolio, don't worry about the Team DSCS Evaluator portal. That is what evaluators will use if you choose a direct upload option to deliver your letter. So that is a separate process, so no worry about that. All right. Guys, if you have any other questions, go ahead and enter those into the chat. We'll stick around for maybe another couple of minutes to see if there's any additional questions. But if not, we may go ahead and just end the session. So go ahead and see if we have any questions in the chat and making sure that we didn't miss any as well. So we did receive a couple of questions. All right, so it looks like that's all the questions that we received at this time. Remember, if you do have any follow-up questions or anything like that, if you're watching this at a later time, feel free to send us a message in your TMDSES application portal. So whenever you log in into the portal to work on your application, at the top right-hand corner, you'll see your name, your TMDSES ID number. Right underneath that, it'll say send a message to TMDSES. That also keeps track of your inbox, and it lets you know if you have any unread messages. So if you have any questions, send us a message in your portal. We will get back to you with that and to assist you with that. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, great start to your week. Thank you, Catherine, for being here. Thank you so much for being here with us and answering these questions for us. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. This was a lot of fun to have you here for the first time. Welcome. And so we'll go ahead and end the session. Thank you guys so much again. Stay tuned for next week for another office hour. We'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.